Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Fisher. I am on the air 10 minutes behind schedule. I had a couple of 2-millisecond power outages at my house just now, so that's why I'm 10 minutes late, but I am here. We're going to try to get this show on. I'm going to try to get to the news right now, but just introduction. Andrew Fisher here, your host. It is December 18th, 2013. This is Nature of Reality Radio, and today we're going to have astrologer Jim Dellicolli on. He is an astrologer par excellence in many ways, and I spoke to him 3 times, as a matter of fact, when he called into he was a guest on the In5D radio show. I called into all 3 shows, and he told me I call him with good information. I'm glad to hear that people think I'm giving good information out, because that's what this show, Nature of Reality Radio, is based on mostly. Takes priority to get information out on this show. So now the news. Well, I think I might as well start by saying next week is Christmas. Duh, I'm sure everybody's aware. Not everybody's going to be celebrating it, only the Christians. But, folks, the story of Jesus is just a metaphor for the sun going across the zodiac. Ta-da! And people accept the story as real. They accept all religions as real. Some people, some people accept religion as real. And all religions are accepted as truth by certain groups of people. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. But it can be shown that the story of Jesus is just a metaphor for the sun going across the zodiac. And I might get into that tonight. I'm sure we'll get into that at some point, because of the guest being an expert in astrology and all. But it's a sensitive topic. I know some people may not want to hear this. I do hope it doesn't become an issue if you're a devout Christian. But truth is the truth, no matter how you slice it, and information has to get out, so it's worth discussing this anyway. And I'm fully in favor of telling kids that Santa does not exist. I mean, Alex Jones, as a matter of fact, said he never told his kids that Santa exists. He thinks it just dumbs kids down. And I guess there is, to some extent, truth to that. A big fat guy going ho, 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 who doesn't even exist. And, I mean, seriously, lives in the North Pole. Well, there's openings at the poles because it's a hollow Earth, but that I don't think could be true unless it's in another dimension. But anyway, in all seriousness, there is no Santa, and to tell kids that he exists encourages families that it's okay to lie. So I'm fully in favor of telling kids Santa doesn't exist. Hey, you may get arrested, because this guy in Canada last year got arrested at a mall for telling kids that Santa didn't exist. He should be held a hero, because he was keeping kids from being dumbed down. But all that aside, let's get on to the news for the day. Let's see here. Democrats persecute homeschooling parents. Your children belong to the state, according to Ohio Senate bill. Yeah, your children belong to the state. They want parents to think that their kids don't belong to them, they belong to the community. There was a recent ad that Alex Jones had been showing a lot on his show in the InfoWars Nightly News about this person saying, your kids don't belong to you, they belong to the community. Put that another way, they belong to the state, the government. The government wants to take your kids. So I keep your kids out of public schools. The teachers and the school administrators don't know that public schools are designed to be prisons. That's how the conspiracy works. But better to get them homeschooled at all costs. And it's flat out, governments pass laws in Germany, I believe, saying homeschooling is not allowed at all. Why, I thought the days of Hitler were over. Not. People who controlled Hitler are the same people who control Germany today, who are the same people who fund and control and the governments of every nation on planet Earth to some degree. They don't have as much control in certain countries over others, like in Syria, they don't have control of the banking system. But no need to talk about that any further. City States International Code, an effort to evict off-grid woman. Yeah, if you don't have smart meters, you're going to get harassed and hassled for not having smart meters, and people will just come on your property to install them. Yeah, smart meters. You don't want to have those. They're just connect into your house. makes the grid in your house go haywire, makes it hard to sleep, cause health problems. They're spying on you through your appliances. Big Brother, yeah, we all know about that. And this woman who tries to make her own electricity is getting targeted for it. So what else have we got here? Christmas wins out, ban on religious school poster overturned following media attention. Shocker, it's not unconstitutional to display the words Merry Christmas. It says, yeah, well, freedom of religion. Even in the schools, people have rights to express religion. I knew some people who were Muslims who they were allowed out of class to do their prayers in the hallway and whatnot. And nobody had any problem with that because it's freedom of religion. And all of a sudden, controversy over a poster saying Merry Christmas, which they label as religious, when I'm sure the people making that poster had no religious intentions in mind. Boy, it's gotten so crazy in this world that simply saying like the word Christmas could get you labeled as a racist or an extremist simply because you side with one group of people, so you're not with other people, and they'll do anything to demonize humans. I hate to sound like a fearmonger, but they try to do everything to break our will, keep us down, and saying the slightest words, like or doing the slightest things that could have nothing to do with race or discrimination, are labeled race and discrimination just to keep humanity down. Oh, it's so pathetic. And well, moving on. Chinese moon display contains image of Europe being nuked. Subtitles: startling detail, a sign of Beijing's plan to militarize space. Well, there's nothing shocking about China going to the moon. We've been going to the moon a lot longer than we've been told. And of course, like I said, the moon is artificial. It so obviously is. The fact that all the craters, except for the small ones, go down to the same depth regardless of diameter is in-your-face evidence that there's some artificial impenetrable surface beneath the moon dust. But this whole thing about going to the moon, yeah, we went to the moon, but the video footage was faked. They had to fake the video footage. If they show the real footage, it's by extraterrestrial cover-up, and what we've also exposed to the moon is nothing like what mainstream science tells us. John Lear held up a picture of what the moon is supposed to look like in regards to its sky color. It's a saffron yellow. There is air on there, artificially generated, I presume, and causes the color to the sky to have a color. And I guess that means the video footage was obviously fake. There's other things in the video footage that suggest that it was faked. We have the technology to go to the moon, no doubt, but they had to fake it, or else humanity may not have been able to handle the truth. But all news being covered. Let me get into the chat room here. Someone's asking, do you do readings? I'll say there should be readings here. I don't see why we can't do readings. Everybody wants to have horoscopes with an astrologer on. So without further ado, I'm going to let Jim Dellicolli on right now. Jim Dellicolli, is that you, area code 704?
That's me, Andrew. How you doing,
Jim? Hey, Andrew. Oh, a little upset. I hope I didn't lose any guests because of the power outage at my house that caused the show to go 10 minutes behind schedule. But it's great to have you on. How you doing?
I'm good. No worries on the 10 minutes. Everybody understands. I'm sure stuff happens, you know?
Yes. I wonder if the Illuminati was tampering into my house's control system to keep the show from starting on time. It's what a coincidence. Nothing's a coincidence, they say. Everything happens for a reason.
That's right. That's right. You go right after it. So I was listening to you. You definitely put out what you know and say what you feel. I like that. I think that needs to be done more in society today. So.
Yeah, and that goes double for astrology because it, in many ways, the way reality is supposed to work. All the great astronomers throughout history, they weren't astronomers, they were astrologers. Astronomy was their hobby. They understood that there really is truth to astrology.
Right.
So it's great to have you on. I guess the first question I should ask is how can you debunk the astrology skeptics? It's always good that when they have a guest on, make them debunk the skeptics at the very start to make it clear that there's no quackery or pseudoscience to what they do or what you do in regards to astrology. So tell us all we need to know that astrology really is for real.
Well, as I venture through this life in this form, I see more and more that the so-called powers to be try to empower themselves at every turn, at every opportunity, at every moment. And by doing that, they want to take the power from the individual. And one of the best ways to grab that power back, in my opinion, as I've learned going through life, is to use astrology. You came with memories, you came with fears, you came with joy, you came with things that you were drawn to for no reason at all, that being introduced in this form or this life or this time, you brought those with you. Those were you dealing with situations and circumstances prior to this life. And so when you come with that, that shows where you are in your evolutionary state. And so as astrology keeps teaching me, I remember youth all the way up to now, I wonder why I'm afraid of certain things, like why, snakes maybe be an issue for me, or I'm drawn to certain things. I always wondered why that was. Well, astrology helps you explain that to you. Is if you look at slow-moving planets, the time you were born, that chart sets off a pretty unbelievable energy that is you and is your makeup, and you repel and draw things to you as you go through life. And when you do that, you start realizing just who you were, bring yourself to the moment, and then really start realizing by working on those issues or areas or even some of the benefits of what you've done, by working on those in the present, you could then start building your future and seeing where you're going. So, those planets are out there for a reason. We're made up of energy more so than anything else, and the guidance there is free. It's out there, and if you just take the time and just open your mind enough, you can empower yourself to know who you were, know who you really are, and know where you can go with that. As I look at this, everybody tries to take astrology and debunk it, or take somebody's intuition and debunk it, or somebody's ability to see things in the future and debunk it. And really, that's all the individuals try and do, is empower themselves for that which they are. And if we'd all start looking at it and understanding it from that perspective, I think we would all catapult the human race to where it really can be and what it can be.
Okay. I remember when I first spoke to you on In5D Radio, when I called in, I told you that I'm the kind of guy, and in many ways I still am. I simply I don't look at astrological readings. I don't. I just acknowledge that it's for real, and I go with the flow of life, knowing that it's going to lead my path. I mean, I do think maybe I am missing something out by not looking at it, but you did explain a few things to me about how you want to look at a certain chart before you look at another chart if you're getting acquainted with astrology and using it to lead you through life, and what you decide to do, how you're going to go through with it, and when to start doing that, moon cycles and all that. We'll get into that later, but just for the novice who wants to get started with astrology, could you just give them the basics, try to go in a little detail, of course, but just the basics nonetheless about what they need to know to get started with astrology in regards to what to look at and how to go about their decisions in life?
Sure. All the planets have, of course, a different energetic output onto that gets put onto Earth, and so they all have a different meaning according to when you're born and when you, as you venture through life. I always tell people, first thing they do is find your sun sign, and then there's plenty of places out there on the web that you could find. Put your date of birth in, time of birth, and location of birth. You could go out to Astrodienst is a really good website. Go out there, put that information in. It'll show you where your sun was at birth by sign, where the moon was at birth by sign, Mercury, all the way out to Pluto where they were by sign. And what I'd focus on if I was a novice is where my sun fell. That's kind of where we're trying to go. That's kind of the light to lead us to see and understand things, and kind of where our spirit can end up and what it can be. And then I'd look at where the moon was, because that's the past. The moon is a reflection of the sun, and so it's to remind you of what was or remind you what mattered. So the moon then helps you to understand more of who you are and who you were. And then I'd look at Saturn. I think Saturn, a lot of astrologers back in the day considered Saturn to be evil or the devil, or I don't mind that. I think we got to understand both sides of any equation. But I look at Saturn more of a lesson teacher, and so if you find where Saturn was at birth, you'll kind of understand what where you were limited yourself or where there was hang-ups in your life. And then follow Saturn as it transits through the sky throughout the time in your life, and you'll see huge moments of awakening happen at around 29, around 58, and then around your early 80s, when Saturn returns back to its position. Saturn's a 29-year cycle through the zodiac from our perspective here on Earth, and if you follow those three planets, I think you'll really see, if you're past 29, that there's a lot of proof to the planets themselves and how they affect us.
Yes, and it's interesting you mentioned moon reflection of sun. Seems like kind of contradictory. Maybe you can help explain this, because I've heard from consciousness and metaphysics experts that the sun is a reflection of masculine energy, while the moon is a reflection of feminine energy. I mean, you wouldn't know that because the moon is apparently the ball and chain around Earth's feminine energy. It's artificial, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and used to be under the control of good aliens, but then the reptilians took it and trashed it and everything, and now it's used as a matrix creator of sorts with Saturn's help, as Saturn being a broadcasting system and all, as David Icke talked about in his most recent talk. So it's kind of ironic that the moon is feminine when it's now being used to suppress Earth's feminine energy. But can you explain how the moon could be a reflection of the sun when they're different of the yin-yang, if that makes sense?
Well, I think that it's typical of as above, so below, or past and future, or as you said, yin and yang. That because the moon, from our perspective, gets illuminated by the sun, I think that if the sun's our direction, then the moon reminds us of where we've been. So when it's totally dark, sometimes when the moon's full or in a half phase or even in quarter phase, it's enough light to give you a little bit of visibility to see in the darkness, so to speak. The moon, because it has no light, you need to feel more. And so, I think the representation through astrology was just that it had a huge influence on our lives. It has a cycle that the moon cycle does match a female cycle of their period through the different ovulation, and if a woman ever wants to know kind of if they're not on the pill when they're going to have their cycle, just watch the moon phases, and it pretty much follows that to a T. Most women, I find, have their periods on either the full moon, or the new moon, and it holds pretty true to everybody, and you can kind of watch that and see. So I think the ancients realized that happened. There wasn't a lot of birth control that we're aware of. History, maybe there was, and history just didn't tell us. So, they followed the cycles of the moon and realized that, all right, that's when the pregnancy can occur or not occur, or, and the moon had a heavy influence on the female from that perspective.
Yeah. Just I don't know if astrologers would look into something like this, but I've heard before that every other solar system would have its own zodiac. I mean, it makes sense because obviously the star appearance is going to be different on other planets. So, I mean, I would have to think they would definitely have their own versions of the zodiac. But what's interesting about that is in the case of the moon, I mean, this is according to Alex Collier, what his ET contacts told him about how the moon used to be in the Ursa Minor star system. It was the moon of a planet called Chalta, and it was moved over here by the Pleiadians, I believe, to seed the Earth. It had the ability to seed DNA. Basically, it was a biosphere that was a biosphere creator, if that makes sense, until it was stolen by malevolent forces. And what's interesting about that is it was taken from one star system to another. Now, when it comes to artificial bodies masquerading as moons or planets being moved from star system to star system, how does that factor into the subject of astrology?
Yeah, it's interesting because if you watch the effect on the moon, not only it has on our bodies because it has that gravitational pull being so close, it also affects the tides. It moves things. I deal heavily in the food industry and as well as doing astrology, and the moons mean everything, cycles of animals as well. So if somebody put that there, and the older I get, the more I look at this and think, how did the first baby show up and make it? Obviously, we're from somewhere else. I'm drawing that conclusion more and more. I'm real careful about who I read, Andrew, and what I read. I don't discount anybody because I think everybody's has a purpose, and everybody's trying to figure things out. So I look at the moon and why it's there and how it affects the Earth, and that life wouldn't exist at all like this if we didn't have the moon to, as I say, change the tides, move the cycles of a female, a menstrual cycle. So it's almost like we had to have that to have the life we have. Now I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. Obviously you've studied that more than me about it being artificial. I've read many articles on it being artificial and it's hollow and it's placed there and it doesn't rotate, and there's a lot of things that don't make sense about the moon being there and being so close and not getting pulled in. So I really can't speak to the knowledge you have. I can only speak with what I've learned and what I understand through astrology, if that makes sense. And who knows, maybe all these planets could have been dropped here. I don't know. In a way, so somebody can watch us. I don't ever just dismiss that. I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, switching from astrology to astronomy for a moment, you said the moon doesn't rotate. Now, I'm getting a little two sides to this story. Some say that the reason we see the same side of the moon is because it doesn't rotate and it just wobbles in a certain way for us to see it. But other people say the reason we see the same side is because it rotates at the same speed that it orbits the Earth. Why do you go with the former theory that... Okay.
Well, it does rotate, and I misspoke there. It does. I feel that it does rotate. We see the same side because it does rotate with the cycle or the transit of the Earth itself. So I misspoke. I apologize.
Okay. All right. Well, actually, some people do say the reason we see the same side is because it wobbles. It's artificially created so they can control it, and it wobbles in such a way that we see the same side. I mean, I don't know why some people believe what they believe in regards to which theory, but just thought I'd point that out for the heck of it. By the way, we do have a caller in. Instead of go on before I take the call.
I was just going to say another thing. When we experience a total eclipse, and you're lucky enough to live on a portion of the planet that can experience that sun is covered almost completely by the moon, if that makes sense. So it's interesting that it's placed there. It almost has to be there, I would think, for the gravitational pull. But it's almost like somebody placed it there to show us or remind us to look to the heavens. We have answers where, there's things going on, and you can get your answer. Just seek, and you shall find. So I always find it interesting that eclipse with the moon, it barely, there's just a sliver all the way around that could be seen, but it pretty much covers the sun in its entirety when that total eclipse happens, if you're in the right location.
Yeah, the probability of that happening is 1 to gazillion, it seems. But I usually take callers an hour and 15 minutes in the show, but I'm going to try to do it without. We have a caller on. Let's get this person on. Area code 856. You are on the air. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Good. Hope you are.
Great. And this is, I got to get into the habit of asking people for their names when they call in.
I'm so sorry. My name is Stacy.
Stacy, how you doing? It's great to have you on. I don't seem to have a lot of people in the chat room, or I don't know if I have a lot of people listening because the first 10 minutes were blocked out because of a couple of power blips. Illuminati trying to sabotage my show, maybe. But anyway, why did you call in? We're interested to hear what question or comments you have for Jim, astrologer par excellence.
No, I was just, it's the first time I'm listening to your show. I'm an Aries, and I didn't know if you guys were doing any astrology readings tonight, and also, supposedly the traits of each sign. I find very interesting, and I think, accurate in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. The thing that I'm noticing more and more is when, and I have a lot of people that come to readings, and it seems like they, the energy of the reading is when things don't make sense to the individual, then they start seeking, I'm going to call them alternative forms of, seeking answers. And so I find a lot of people that when they get to a certain point in life where things they were told or things that they feel and know, it doesn't add up versus what they're seeing around them, they start seeking alternative ways to educate themselves. And so the reason I said all that is because the Aries are experiencing a lot of change and have been since 2011 when Uranus went into Aries. And Uranus is the planet that brings shocking, sudden change to whatever signs that it transits. And so for you, Aries individuals and energies, if you have that heavy in your chart, you have a lot of change and like breaking free. Uranus Aries wants to seek freedom, so at any and every possible turn, they're looking to free themselves from anything that binds them. So one of the better qualities of an Aries individual is that they're always seeking something. They have a lot of energy to go and almost pioneer or frontier something. So you have two the freedom-seeking energy and the ability to like take on and have pride and be brave. The Aries energy is now getting some help from Uranus, and it's going to be there for probably about 5.5, 6 years. So you got time that your life is just going to be totally overhauled. And the thing I like to leave people with whenever they deal with Uranus, because it's so chaotic, is you're going to be left better than you were found in the end, because Uranus, it kind of gives you that promise. It's just the ride is pretty bumpy along the way, if that makes sense.
No, it does, and you were right on, because there has been an extreme amount of change in my own life in the last year and a half, and it's very interesting, and I do believe in astrology and horoscopes and all that, and was on Blog Talk and was going through, and I caught the show, and I thought, wow, this is very interesting, and that's when I called in.
Well, we appreciate you calling. I can say this, that I'm a Libra, so I kind of have a lot going on as well, like you do, and we're going to have a big year next year because the eclipses are coming to Libra Aries. So when I say next year, I'm talking 2014. So really, what I'm doing, and I would never give advice to somebody that I wouldn't take for myself or consider. And what I'm doing with these energies that we're going to be dealing with is I'm looking to make the most of this transformation and freedom and ability to pioneer. I want to make the most of this and move forward with it. So I'm open to everything, and when something looks dark or grim, I'm going to look for opportunities within that. And I think if you can do that, you did say it was Stacy, right? Your name's Stacy?
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you, because even a negative you can turn into a positive. Even a bad experience, if you learn from it, you can make the most of it.
Absolutely, and that's really the kind of advice I'm throwing out there for people now, especially the Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, because that we're going to be the really affected signs now in 2014. Even though it may look like something's going to really restrict you or change your life in a negative way, look for the opportunities, because you might catapult yourself here. This is where we got stuck in past. Eclipses awaken us to kind of our evolution, and so we can overcome our past now, and Uranus is there to free us. So I'm hoping that if you can take the attitude, it sounds like you have, and know that, hey, at every moment it could all go away, but there's something more, something better. You just got to look for it.
Absolutely. Yes. So, total agreement with your outlook on that.
Oh, well, good. Like I said, we appreciate you calling in. Do you have any other questions? Or?
No, just enjoying the show. And,
good. Well,
it's a lot to learn.
It's overwhelming, but as I found this subject, which I should have said earlier in the show, is interesting to me, because when I first took it on, I would study it until I couldn't stay awake, and then I'd burn myself out and I had to get away. And what I found is when I'd learned something, I may have not thought that I took it in, but I did, and I could feel like a planet, even deeper to how it really was with all my studies. And so I'd pick it up laying in bed or taking a shower, driving down the road. It would come to me and just download, and I'd learn so much in a situation that people would be like, you don't even have the book in front of you. Well, it downloads. So pace yourself, and if you're interested and drawn to it, then that's something this life that needs to be pursued. So I'm encouraging all you and anybody listening, if they're drawn to it, to get after it, because that's something that you probably have done in the past, and you're drawn to it for a reason. So enjoy it.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks a lot,
Andrew.
Stacey. I'm an Aries too.
Okay.
Yeah. How you doing? Thanks for calling in. Great to have you back on, Jim. I guess we'll get right back to giving out information, which, as I said, is paramount on this show.
Sure.
What to ask you next? Well, I guess we'll get into the subject of Pluto in Capricorn. Greg Prescott
Sure.
talks about it all the time whenever he has had you on and other astrology people on. But we've heard last time Pluto was in Capricorn was the American Revolution. And make of that whatever you will, but many people would interpret that as meaning it's going to be a battle for liberty and freedom and maybe bring down the New World Order or something. So just for the people who don't understand this, is there significance to Pluto in Capricorn? And if there is, does it have anything to do with attaining liberty and freedom?
Yeah, I think Capricorn, the sign, the energies of Capricorn are kind of like our ability to understand things after we've gone through the process of letting them sink into our soul. We absorb them, we contemplate them, we figure them out from our core, and then we start acting on them. Capricorn is where we've figured it out to the core, and then we've introduced it to others and shared it, and then they came with feedback, they reacted, and we had to deal with that. Well, Capricorn's, after you share it with the core of who you are, you share it with others, and then what they can teach you, good and bad, and then what you make of that. So if you think about Capricorn, the sign, anytime planet comes in there, it's about somebody that thinks they know what's going on. And really at that time they do for wherever they are in evolution. And the last time Capricorn was hosting Pluto was 1760 to 1777. So as you know through any of the history that you read, which a lot of it has been skewed. I heard you talking earlier about the powers to be and things, and they've skewed a lot of how Capricorn operated and what it did, and a lot of times what Hollywood or what the powers to be want us to all to understand or think is that this war just happened in 1776. Everybody got mad one day; they weren't going to take it anymore. Couldn't be further from the truth. It built up, and the way these planets work, if we slice each sign, we have 12 signs in the sky, in the heavens. If we slice each sign and divide the sky into 12 pieces, there's 360 degrees in the circle, 30 degrees for a sign. If we take that 30 degrees of each sign and slice it into 10-degree sections, that'd be 1/3 of each piece of the three pieces. It'd be 10 degrees of as far as if we 1 degree for each section of the zodiac, 360 being the total. The reason I'm talking about this is it really makes a difference when a planet enters a sign and how the planet operates from 0 to 10 degrees, and then it changes how it operates from 11 to 20, and then it changes how it operates 21 to 30 when it's transiting through the signs. Pluto's so slow moving that what's happened up to now is Pluto is the great awakener. It's the soul. It's the timeless planet that makes you deal with hell and heaven. So it makes you deal with how civilization was created, what we did to create it, good and bad, and then when Pluto comes to Capricorn in its cycle, we have to then address it and say, all right, where did the ego get involved, or where did we do things to ourselves, the race, the planet that we're limiting, and we got to start addressing them. Well, that happened in 2009. Pluto went into Capricorn, and so we're now at that 10, 11 degrees. So what Pluto did is, from the soul level, it made us all start feeling uneasy. And it's funny how the powers to be said, all right, let's do a financial crisis, right? So they're telling you what they've done wrong. The problem here is that people don't notice it at first. And because Pluto's so slow, everybody's stirred from a core level. They're all trying to figure this out. Well, we're in that 10th, 11th degree now, where the next phase of this Pluto transit is now we're going to start doing things about it. And it won't be overnight because it's such a slow-moving planet. But, people are tired of the lies. They're tired of the stories. They're tired of the rich getting richer, the big getting bigger. And so they're starting to awaken to that. And more people, it's still beneath the surface, but it's getting closer to surface and to start being acted upon, because now we're in that 10, 11 degree phase of Capricorn, of the Pluto transit, to where we can start saying, all right, I'm calling bullshit on this. Now, Andrew, you've done it. I've done it. There's a lot of people that are doing it, but I'm talking on a massive level, and people just aren't going to take this anymore. So the lies are going to be revealed. They're still being covered up. Let's not kid ourselves. But they're going to be revealed to a new level, and this is going to bring people to that point where they're really going to do something about it.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out that the powers that be, the Illuminati, they are obsessed with astrology. They do a lot of work on that. I mean, Kennedy was killed on an astrologically significant day. The Boston bombing happened on an astrologically significant day, and oh my God, I can go on and on and on. But every time something happens, you would have to think there's something astrologically significant for the most part, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the big things that people just don't understand is every year the sun goes into the sign of Capricorn around the 20th, 21st, or 22nd of December. And that's when all the politicians supposedly take off. But if you would just stop and look at how many bills get passed or laws get put into place or how many things take effect or stop they end around this time, it's because they have had the ability to do it when astrologically it's smart. So a lot of things that go on happen behind the scenes, but they happened at a perfect time astrologically. It's just you don't see it as evidence, and that's where people need to start using more of their faculties, not just their brain and their eyes and their ears and their physical senses, but use your intuition, use your hunch, your own guidance system, and start picking up on this stuff, and you'll start seeing that they don't miss a powerful astrological time. They just don't, and a lot of things happen quietly behind the scenes, and you find out about it when you go back and look and do the research about when it was done. Then you can, I don't like to play the, Monday morning quarterback, but I try to put out in the videos and stuff I do what the energies are and what we're dealing with, and then I let everybody else go back and find out what happened. I could care less. I know a powerful time, and I put it out for people to wake up and start taking control or taking more control of their lives, and because the powers to be are doing this, and you're right, astrologers help them tremendously with everything they do.
Right. And here's the probably most sensitive subject of the day. I mentioned it'll be sensitive, but astrotheology, I mean, we might as well get this out while we're at it. I mean, the Zeitgeist Movement, David Icke, Jordan Maxwell, they've all made it clear that the story of Jesus is a metaphor for the sun going across the zodiac. I mean, that's not to say that there wasn't some guy that lived during the time of Jesus, that the fictional story of Jesus in the Bible is based on. There is some evidence to back that up, but I'm not really going to get into that. I just want to get into the subject of the sun being a symbol for Jesus and the story of Jesus' life being a metaphor for the sun going across the zodiac, which apparently can be shown with other religious entities throughout history. You can actually do the same thing, but I'm sure you're familiar with that. To the best of your knowledge, could you explain that?
If you look, there's a lot of pictures of Jesus with the light behind his head, and I do think that's the sun. I do, as you said, many civilizations way before the 0 year had the same philosophy of half man, half human. Was born kind of like a godlike, died and then rose from the dead and then went to the heavens. And the story's the same throughout almost all the great civilizations. I don't know why they don't teach that or put that together. I'm not against religion. I think religion does help people when they're in need, just like I think astrology does. But I do think that to a degree it could disempower an individual by not thinking for themselves or feeling for themselves or understanding things from their perspective, because I think they got to the point that they got to, and then they came here to work on that. So as far as all that, yes, it is the sun, and when it travels through the zodiac and when it makes the Grand Cross, which we're at 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015 is that point of change. And so we're here, and I think it's a whole new new reset on civilization itself. We're in it. You can't tell me you don't see it, you don't feel it, and it isn't everywhere you go. So I just think that the powers that be are putting so much out there to keep you off of feeling, thinking, and seeking for yourself. So trying to give you so many other things to think and worry about. And if you really think about it, Andrew, the great civilizations, it's like, why didn't we find any artifacts or, what happened? Well, it's funny how we slowly are getting to, now we're all on a computer. You don't really print anything. There's nothing physical. And so you kind of see, even books are now going to Kindle and ebooks, and so you kind of see how a civilization, as it so-called progresses, it also loses its ability to transfer its knowledge through time, other than the fact of what we feel, think, and know, and that's hard to put a finger on when people are here in the physical world. So.
Right, and just a quick pointer, since it's Christmas time. The sun being the shortest day, shortest time visible on the winter solstice, which will actually be at this coming Saturday at 12:11 Eastern time in the afternoon. But the Jesus being died on that day, being born on that day, born again, because it stays on the same axis in the sky, the same degree for like 3 days, and then it starts increasing.
It moves back.
Jesus was born again, I think that's right. Why does the sun stay on the same degree for 3 days? Could you answer that? I've always been puzzled by that. Why does that happen?
Yeah, it's our perspective, but it as we tilt, right? We're in that moment of tilt, and there's a 2.5 days, 2-3 days that everything keeps it almost stays on that. When we're at that point of winter, the first day of spring, first day of summer, first day of fall, we're kind of at that point where, all right, we've reached the pinnacle, now we're moving to the next phase. So it's just a matter of our perspective from here, from Earth, looking at the sun itself, that we get the daylight, seems to say, about the same when we hit those critical north, south, east, west points, which would be spring, summer, fall, and winter.
Right. By the way, it's interesting to point out that Alex Collier said that his ET contactees told him that astrology, what we call astrology, is just a way that the higher dimensional extraterrestrials used of mapping stars, and they said it turned into an entire fictional belief system. I think Alex Collier used the wrong terminology. I think he meant to say astrotheology and not astrology, because I've seen more than enough evidence that astrology is definitely real, but astrotheology is a made-up belief system. But moving on, we've heard that we are moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. But just before I get into what's confusing about this, the thing about the age of Aquarius is people say that some of us will be living in a great higher state of consciousness, a great life, while all the sheeple and people that didn't want to wake up will not be leading a great life in the age of Aquarius. But before we get into that, the thing I'm a little puzzled about is, why is it that nobody knows when the age of Aquarius will be? I mean, if you map the stars, shouldn't you be able to figure out what something will eventually be? Why is it that people say we don't know when the age of Aquarius will be, or it has been if it started already?
I think there's two things that I think that we spiral through our zodiac, so to speak. So I think that that's issue number one, and two is how the pole, like if we stuck a pole through the Earth and we wobble, it's the wobbling and where that pole would, the North Point would point to which sign or which sign in the zodiac. So it's going from Pisces to Aquarius as far as the North itself, but it's a almost 2,500 year point. So it takes so long that, in our lifetimes we live 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, that we're just a speck on that map. And if you take 2,500 times 12, it gets you about 26,000 years. So it's actually 2,150, sorry, not 2,500. So it gets you at 26,000 years, and that's where I think we are. We're at that 26,000 year cycle of resetting things and to begin anew and take this to a whole nother level.
Yes, and interesting the whole thing you mentioned about being 2150, 2160. I heard Santos Bonacci say in his In 5D radio interview way back in the day that he thinks that the year 2016, that will start a higher age of awareness. David Icke says the same thing, 2016. But he said that the 2016 is directly correlated in some way. I don't remember how, but he says it's correlated in some way. There's a correlation with the 2160 that you just mentioned. I don't know where he got that idea, but can you think of any reason why he would say something like that?
No, I'm trying to think of. maybe he understands these cycles and that this wobble and where our point is with that. If we stuck that and made the rod in the earth and we followed it, I think that that's an understanding. It takes us about 26,000 years to get through the whole zodiac as we spin through and travel through. So maybe he's tapped into a cycle of an ancient group that figured it out. So I don't know.
Okay. If I ever get him,
that's not a good answer, but I can't figure out one.
All right, well, let's go if I get the chance. But wanted to
why he thinks it's 2016? Is that what you're saying? Is that the question? I thought you were talking about the cycle.
Well, maybe we'll get to that question later. But
okay,
we'll get into dates later on. But wanted to discuss what was the astrological significance behind December 21st, 2012, and after that we'll also discuss the March equinox 2013. There's reasons I want to get into that, but first, the galactic alignment of December 21st, 2012, astrologically speaking, what does that symbolize and signify?
We had Pluto, the Sun, and the Moon fairly close in alignment, looking out to the galactic center, and it came across the plane. So as the Sun rose in the plane that it takes, the galactic center came across that. So as the Sun rose, anytime the Sun comes up, it's a significant time, or anytime planet enters the eastern horizon, it emerges from what the ancients felt, and I do believe that it's a new time, so it's a new opportunity, a new chance, and for it to happen in early degree of Capricorn, it's how we understand things, it's how we see things, and how we can make or take something that's in a non-physical form and bring it to physical life. So the significance of that was that's the beginning now. And because it moved so slow, everybody was like, oh, the world will end. Everybody will be enlightened come the next day. This is where we have the problem. We're being enlightened every day, faster and faster and faster. And it's just you just got to understand this is a process and we're in it. And the best thing to do is, like when we were talking to Stacy on the phone, is look for opportunities. Look for chances to grow, to educate yourself, to come to a wiser point in your life or a better understanding in life. Do that at every juncture. Don't let a moment of fear or sad times, don't let that carry too far. Look for an opportunity in that, and then you'll understand that you have all you need. And this is what 2012 was about, was you awakening and empowering yourself, but it's a process. So once we get to 2016, I think that where the eclipses move, Saturn will be into Capricorn, and I think it's all. Then we're going to put it together, and I think that's a significant year because Saturn moves out of Scorpio through Sagittarius and then into Capricorn, and when Saturn will be back home, and I think that we're really going to put things together from perspective to help wisen up, so to speak, the human race.
Okay, and I also want to get into the March equinox of 2013, and the reason I see that date is significant, a couple of reasons. First, get into what George Kavazlis had said. He retracted his earlier claims about how the time period between December 21st, 2012 and March 21st, 2013 would be when we ascended to 5D Earth. There was a shift in the timeline that he felt that caused him to retract those claims in late 2011. But the reason I discussed this is because he claimed that the March equinox 2013 was the actual end of the 26,000-year cycle, and he said that the reason for that is because it's a precession of the equinoxes, and the 2012 winter solstice is on a solstice, and the 2013 March is on an equinox, so it makes sense that it would end then. And there were a lot of ceremonies that the Vatican was actually doing during the 2013 March equinox. I also want to point out that Andrew Bartzis said that that was the day when creator beings were supposed to have an audit to decide if the 2,200 different races that make up humanity, I believe it was, he said humanity, could all be combined into one, but the creator beings, they were judged by higher, like the universal consciousness, and the audit failed. We couldn't all join into one. So we're continuing on this trend, and I'm thinking maybe this might explain why George Kavazlis was wrong about his original claim in some sense, why he felt a shift in the timeline. But anyway, aside from that, the 2013, was it really the end, the March equinox, the end of the precession of the equinoxes, as George claims, and what was the significance behind that date?
I can't agree with the precession of the equinox, but I can agree that I think this is a tremendous point in history as Venus was with that sun as it traveled into Aries. It was pretty close, and I hold Venus close because of its transit and the way the planet spins. But I also, we were squaring Pluto. We had Uranus involved. I think it was a heavily planetary configuration, and as you know, when that sun crosses over the equator, that's a big time for us. That's summer. I mean, that's spring and fall, and it's where the sun re-emerges back into the northern hemisphere in March, and then in September it's when it heads back to the southern hemisphere. So I think that was a big time for civilizations as they understood the timeline and the timing of nature itself, or the planets themselves. And so I always look at that as it's a time to awaken. And I talked a lot about this to my groups that I would have about that's a time to start something, right? Because the sun's coming back and illuminating and warming and bringing life-giving forces to the northern hemisphere. So if you look back and date history, any time from the 18th of March through the 22nd, 23rd of March, a lot of stuff got instigated or began or started in that time period. And so, every year I look at that. This year was more heavily influenced because we had 2 slow-moving planets that helped it. So as far as the precession of the equinoxes, it's close, but it's such a slow thing that I still trying to find things that I can really hold what I believe with it, and I just think that we're in a time period of that's changing. So I don't think we need to fight it. We need to just let it change.
Yes, and just people are probably interested to know, since we're going to have the winter solstice this upcoming Saturday at 12:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What is the significance behind this upcoming solstice?
I always like this because it's the time that we need to wake up and from our own perspective, we need to really step out and say, all right, I'm ready to harvest and put out what I know and get after it. So I like to take this time to do just that. And this one I think will be even a little more powerful because we're going to have a Grand Cross around just after all this. And the Grand Cross is a time of action that you must take. And all the cardinal signs are going to be involved, and those are the signs that begin each season. So we're going to have the sign of Aries, which begins spring, Cancer, which begins summer, Libra, which begins fall, and then Capricorn, which begins winter, are all going to be hosts and planets, and they're all going to be either opposing or squaring each other. And so this is going to be a huge time right now. And there's going to be a lot that goes on, and it may not all look positive or seem positive, but what we got to do is find out our plan of action and really put a plan together here at this time of the winter solstice and all the way through the first of the year.
Okay, one thing I want to get into that's going to be coming up, might be coming up. I mentioned this the last time you appeared on In5D Radio when I called in. I talked to you about this, and I just want to get a disclaimer out to anyone who's listening. I don't want people obsessing about what I'm about to talk about, because if you obsess about this, you're going to lose touch with reality and you won't be able to concentrate at all. That thing I'm talking about is the fact that Andromeda Council contactee Talek and also Alex Collier, the other ET contactee I mentioned earlier, they both talked about how the time period, Alex Collier said December 3rd, 2013 would be around the starting point when this might happen. And Talek has always said that his Andromeda Council contacts have told him that January 2014 would be the time when humanity ascends into 4D Earth. And a lot of people find the subject of ET contacts to be highly skeptical and whatnot. But to the best of your knowledge, can you see anything in astrological readings that would suggest that Talek may be onto something about saying we will ascend into 4D Earth? And he actually said that December 21st, 2012, that was when the Earth's core bloomed into 4D Earth, and over time the whole Earth is going to go into 4D Earth, and he says it will happen in 2014. Is there anything astrologically speaking that you can see that would say he's telling the truth on that?
About this ascending into 4D, I'm not sure about that. I can say this: the evolution that's going to happen, our understanding of the universe and understanding of all of our faculties is ramping up, and that's Uranus and Aries. It's Pluto in Capricorn. It's Saturn being in Scorpio, and it's also the eclipses being in Scorpio Taurus. I think you should be, if you're not realizing more deja vus, or you think of something or somebody and they call, or the event happens, or you just start, your faculties are starting to work more the way they always should have. I know that's to 4 and 5D then. I don't know if it's going to look much different, but it'll be much different as we move forward here, because we're going to start understanding just who we really are. And so definitely that could happen. I try not to tag myself or put myself in any one category, because I want to make sure that I'm open for anything that comes. So I mean, I see the trends, and the trends are that we're going to be more psychic, more take our hunches and our ability to see into the future or see into the past, and take what we've learned and what we know and use all our faculties and move forward. I think that's going to just continue as long as you stay pure or clean of anything that can dull the senses, so to speak, whether it be chemicals, food, whatever. So we're going to be careful there, but the opportunity is right here and waiting for us.
Right, and I don't want, like I said, people should not obsess about what Tulloch says, because if you think, oh my God, we're all going to be saved when we ascend into fourth dimensional density in January 2014, you won't be able to concentrate in life. I mean, I'm sure I'm probably going to be talking about it again on my next show with Alfred Weber, because he did a huge, because he's going to be my guest on January 8th. He did a 6-hour series of episodes on his show with Tulloch, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that at some point. But just before I get on to the next subject, I just want to get out to to anybody who's listening. Please call in. I have no callers. Call-in number is 646-478-4747. And again, that's 646-478-4747. I need callers. We'll be happy to do readings and whatnot. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I just want to talk to you about the solar system layout, because there's a couple things about the solar system that an astrologer I'm sure they would find significant. Bear with me, this might get a little complicated, but first of all, Andrew Bartzis, I mentioned him earlier. He's an Akashic Records reader. He can read the Akashic Records, so unless ETs have found a way to toy with his mind, he can answer pretty much any question, actually every question correctly, by tapping into the Akashic Records. And he says that there are actually 66 planets. Got that? 66 planets in the solar system, and not surprisingly, they're all out beyond Pluto. Another thing that's worth pointing out is, yes, Nibiru does exist. It's supposed to be in its normal 3,600-year elliptical orbit, but Andromeda Council contacting Tulloch said it was put by the Andromeda Council and other higher consciousness entities in an orbit above the plane of the solar system. So when it didn't come by Earth, which it was supposed to do around 2012, it wouldn't happen, and we'd be protected from that. And one more thing I want to get into about the solar system. There is a video I would encourage people to watch. Judge for yourself, but it's called Solar System New Interpretation. You can find it on YouTube, and it talks about how the solar system, first of all, the solar system is moving at very high velocity throughout space. It's not sitting in one place. And second of all, and Santos Bonacci talked about this too, he buys into this claim that the layout of the solar system, the planets are in their orbits, but if you were to look at the solar system from one angle, you would see the planets go out like in a cone shape. They're not in an orbital disk. The solar system, you could put a cone shape around it, because this has to do with keeping the forces in equilibrium, so the planets can stay in that orbit, because if they were trying to stay in the dish-shaped orbit, things would go haywire. But in the solar system laid out as the shape of a cone, with at the top of the cone, at the center point, you have the sun, and as you go down the cone and the cone gets wider, each planet going from Mercury to Pluto and all the remaining planets that Andrew Bartzis talked about beyond that, they would actually go in a circle in orbits. So they're actually not revolving around the sun. They're orbiting around nothing, but the sun would be really up high at the top of the cone, where if you were to draw a line down from the sun through all the planets are orbiting, that line would go in the center point that all those planets are orbiting around. Now, all this stuff that I've just said, I hope you've been able to bear with me. Do you agree with that? That's the layout of the solar system. And again, Santos Bonacci, who's a great astrologer too, says this. And do you buy into that whole thing about 66 planets, including Nibiru, outside the orbit of Pluto?
I can't dispute that. I can't confirm it. There's no doubt. I know there's more than the planets that we have acknowledged. So 66, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of asteroids. There's a lot of. I think asteroids have an influence, and I think that we maybe need to reconsider how we identify whatever is out there, because if they have an energetic influence, I think we need to address that and give it a term that would make sense. I think for us to, as we observe and watch what happens when a certain asteroid or planet goes through a sign, and then we can start like the ancients did and start addressing. All right, here's what's going on. Here's what is happening on Earth, and people are doing this and that and whatever. So I think that's definitely a possibility. 66, I don't know if there's 66. I looked with my naked eye. Who knows? There could be a bunch more planets. There could be planets that cycle the other way, like you're talking Nibiru, maybe in a 3,600-year cycle. As far as the cone theory, I actually am working on that one myself. I think maybe that definitely is possible. But I think it's a cone on either side. I think the sun could have the exact same situation on the other side with the cone as well. And I just wonder if that's what we spend 13,000 years each time dealing with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, the way the cone would work, as the direction the sun is moving through space, that's obviously going forward from that point. That's not where the planets would be. They would have to be trailing behind, because, as you know, you wave a flag through the air, the flag will be trailing behind the direction you're waving it. It'll be the same thing with the planets. And again, the video on YouTube,
I fully understand that, but I guess what I'm saying is maybe we spend half our time behind the planet, half the time in front of it, the sun, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay. And if anyone wants to see that video, it's called Solar System New Interpretation. Yeah, Solar System New Interpretation. It's not very long. And they do a view of the solar system from Polaris, I think it is. This is like from the North Pole, and then they rotate the solar system around, and they put the zodiac around the sun, and as the whole solar system is turned around, you will see the planets getting closer to you, and the zodiac flips around. So I'm sure you'll have to draw your own interpretations, but
Absolutely.
We got a caller. It's Sean Cohen, as a matter of fact. She wants to question you about her second Saturn return coming up. So
okay.
Sean, you are on the air. Welcome.
Hi, Andrew. Hi, Jim.
Hey, Sean. How are you?
It's really good to talk to another astrologer, as always. And I never really get the chance to sort of bat my chart around with other astrologers as much as I would like to. So I just wanted to get your opinion. I have a few major aspects coming up.
Okay.
I don't know if I should just give you the aspects or tell you my date of birth, or how would you like me to do it?
I have my program up, so if you want to do that, if you're okay with that, I am.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. So that's great. My birth date is April the 6th, 1956.
April 6th, you said? April 6th?
April 6th, 56.
Okay.
And
all right. Time?
2 a.m. exactly.
Oh, really?
And, yeah.
And what was the city?
Pittsburgh, PA.
Pittsburgh, okay. Okay.
I don't know which house system you use, but you should have 17 degrees Capricorn rising.
Yeah, it's a Placidus, and that's what I use.
That's what I use, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, that's great, Jim, that you've got your program there.
Yeah.
Well, we've got the Pluto-Uranus thing going on, and if you look at my chart, you see that Pluto is headed towards my ascendant. Never a good thing, is it? And Uranus is coming up to kick my Sun and Mercury in the rear end. And I also have the joy of the second Saturn return. I mean, these will all be in the next year or so, or a little bit later. Right. Excuse me. I also have my Jupiter return coming up in the 7th house. Right. So, there's an off, and plus Saturn right now is hovering over my midheaven, and so it's quite an interesting ball of tricks there.
Yeah, and so as I'm looking here, obviously you have you're dealing with past, you're dealing with, of course, today and trying to learn, but then you're also dealing with others. So, look at this, I'd say with the Saturn return being in the 11th house, I actually like that, even though you have all that other stuff going on, because I think you can, from a perspective that may not, you'll have to really do the work, but I think from that perspective, you'll be able to take yourself to a way better place here, and you have the knowledge and have the power, so to speak, with Saturn returning. It's also a North Node. Are you hard on yourself with?
Well, I'm driven. Capricorn rising, Mars in the first house in Capricorn. It's very driven. Do I get
you wear
anywhere?
Yourself down?
I don't know, but I'm very driven. Yeah.
Well, do you wear yourself down then? I guess work to exhaustion.
Yeah, right now I actually have I've been diagnosed as exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what I'm looking at this, I'm just saying this is exhaustion here, and I guess what I would look at this is, remember, the 11th house is almost a reprieve from Saturn, but then, of course, you chose to have Pluto coming over the ascendant, and I've had 4 people that deal with Pluto coming over the ascendant, and every one of them deals the same. It's like you die with a way of believing and understanding and thinking and knowing, but you keep the body. And it's like you stay here, but it's like everything that you knew, thought, felt kind of gets shredded, and it's almost like, damn, I'm still in this body, but everything's different. I think you move to the next stage of evolution, but it's not an easy thing to do. And with Mars there, that's really going to be a chance. I guess it's like I talked to Stacy, I'm pushing here, is find the opportunities, even though it all seems to be going away. Find the opportunities in that, because really that 11th house, and then the North Node being the 11th house by Saturn, it's a huge opportunity for you to look at things from a whole different perspective and almost bring youth back to your life. But you got to shed all that you no longer need, and that's really the process that I see here. So it's exhausting. I mean, extremely exhausting.
It's interesting because, looking at Pluto over the ascendant, it is like a little death, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And then Uranus also on my Sun and Mercury. Now,
yes.
I'm Moon in Aquarius, Chiron in Aquarius, mutual reception between the Moon and Uranus. So I'm not too worried about Uranus, to be honest, but it's the Pluto, and I haven't been well. I'm really struggling with my health. I have other issues as well. So nothing too serious, but, it did worry me that, am I going to sort of, astrology is only as good as the person who's wearing it, so to speak.
Yes. Yes.
And so, I know that, I don't know if you know what I do. I was a guest on Andrew's show. I'm a psychic medium, metaphysician myself, have been for 30 years.
Okay.
And, I've worked all over the world, and, and I'm 57 years old, approaching my second Saturn return. I came to London in my first Saturn return.
Okay.
And I've been here ever since, really. And, I did wonder if I might move back to the States.
I've seen, and some people move across town, but it's like they were in a bad area, and then they moved to a really nice area. You know what I'm saying? And so the 4 people that I've seen have that happen. They all have, in some way, shape, or form, moved. So that would not surprise me at all. what I'm looking at here, I think is a tremendous opportunity coming, but you got to shed some of this that's wearing you out, I guess is what I'm saying, because Uranus, I'd like the Uranus transit coming over the Sun and Mercury in the third house. I'd love that. I think that's a great transit to free you from maybe some stigmas that aren't yours, somebody else's, if that makes sense.
Well, if you work this spiritual path, you're prone to that, aren't you?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that might be that maybe some people their minds have awakened a little bit more. I'm still the same, doing what I've always done, always evolving. But I think more and more people are waking up. So I then become more acceptable, if you will, in my career choice, let's say. It's who I am. It's not just my career, but and
wouldn't that be the Saturn translating over the 10th house too? Is people coming back to you, going, "Wow, you were," you know what I mean? I mean that's a lot of what you've worked on too. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's 30 years this year.
Wow,
and
that's awesome.
I graduated from metaphysics school and decided this would be my career. I mean, I knew it when I went into the metaphysics school.
Right.
So it is. I'm already having, if you will, a Saturn return in my career. Right? And I have, I was just telling my daughter this. Wow, a couple people came back from 25 years ago. It's just happened to me recently, that somebody, oh, wow, Sean, I have to go back and see her. She was right all those years ago. And I recently had a client who came back from 5 years ago. Not that they don't, but it's just nice that people do come back, obviously. That's always a joy.
Absolutely.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to ask you one more question. So,
sure.
Neptune, sitting up there in my 9th house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, so we have Neptune in Pisces right now.
Yes.
And that 9th house, can you tell me anything about it? Do you get anything about it?
Yeah, I'm looking at that, and I'm, Neptune, 29 degrees of Libra. I'll talk about that first. Are you a pleaser?
Well, I was born in 1956. The women, my generation were trained to grow up to please.
Right.
And I think that, and that's the difference between the generations. And, be a good girl. You know what I mean? Please everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Be nice. Be pretty.
Fair, pretty.
Fair, pretty. Don't be smart. You don't need to be smart.
Right.
And I fought that all my life. All my life. I've fought that. So
I guess what's wrong with accepting that, I guess. The only reason I'm asking that is a lot of times what happens is, what I'm seeing with the Neptune in Libra people is bring the balance back to you. Okay, if that's what society said, what's wrong with maybe listening to that if that brings ease? I guess that's my only thing I want to throw out there. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying allow that to be easy then, I guess. But make it yours, own it, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm not 29 anymore. Do you know what I mean? I'm almost
No,
60,
but you're a lot wiser.
It's a little bit of a different flavor nowadays. And also, it wouldn't be my... I understand what you mean. I do like to paint. I do have artistic qualities.
Good.
And maybe some of that could come out.
Well, and then the nodes are coming towards that, and that because that's the very gifted one, Neptune, right? In fact, you're so gifted, it's hard for you to grasp it because it's so much. But having that in the 9th house, I would say huge opportunities for you, and I don't want to say teach, but huge opportunity for you to pass what you have on, and the appreciation from others should be tremendous here in this next few years because of where Saturn's laying and Pluto's coming. So I think that maybe you be known for more of what you are, so to speak, and not. I'm not trying to pigeonhole you, but you have other gifts, and I look at that as multi-talented, coming across in a Libran way, which is very aesthetically pleasing. So I'm not going to say you can do what you want, but I'm going to say I think there's way more you could do that people would just almost be mesmerized by, and the opportunities are here for you to try to experience that, I guess is what I'd say.
Thank you, Jim. I am doing lots of things all the time, with all the different things I do. I do teach. I have been teaching for 30 years, different metaphysics, astrology, tarot, you name it. I've done personal growth workshops and past life regression. I've been a past life regressionist for many years. I'm also a writer, and I've been working on a book for a long time now.
Let's get it published. That's the 9th house, right?
It is the 9th house. I've kind of been waiting for my daughter to grow up a little bit. She's just 17.
Okay.
And I figure when she's 20, I'll be able to promote it more, and she'll be able to understand it more.
Right.
So yeah, that has been my sort of objective. Now, I don't want to keep you on the line too long. Thank you very much for my reading there. It was lovely.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope it proved beneficial. I'm looking at this as, I know Pluto's coming across and you're coming to your Saturn return, but that, I look at Saturn returns as our biggest moments in life because I think we're wise, very wise at these points. So I see huge opportunities for you here. Just don't run yourself. The thing that scares me here is that Mars on the ascendant, because you can wear yourself down by trying to do too much. So that's the only thing I see caution with here. If you handle that transformation, it sounds like you're extremely wise. So I think it's time for you to show us what you got,
Well, I'm trying. I was a guest on Andrew's show, and I've been on other shows. I'm going to have a show coming up on Rick's show, The Right Side of Things, this Sunday.
Oh, good.
As his guest, doing readings for Christmas and things like that. I do what I can, but I'm also a mother. And I'm
that's what I was
going
to say. You got to get the energy back from people too, because that's what I asked earlier about the Neptune and Libra. You want to help, but make sure you get back equal of what you gave, if that makes sense.
Well, that's fair enough to say. I think that's true. I think I'm more a giver than a receiver.
I would say this here, yeah, you are. Look at this, but I don't know you that well, but look at this. I just, and Saturn return is when you can really wise up and make sure you get back, because you definitely deserve it.
Thank you so much. That's really nice to hear. Okay, Andrew, on with the show. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for calling in. I'm glad. Take care. All right, Jim, moving on, another thing I mentioned with you when I spoke to you on In 5D Radio, since we're on the subject of the solar system, you did mention that you said the layout of the solar system, the way we're being told, it can't be right because of the way the motions are. You said things are missing. Well, the 66 planet thing that I just mentioned may have something to do with that. But one of the things I talked to you about was a brown dwarf about the size of Uranus that's between the orbit of Earth and Venus, but closer to Venus. And if you believe the solar system interpretation that I told you, it would be higher up towards the top of the cone where the sun would be than Earth, and a little bit lower than Venus. But this brown dwarf supposedly has its own planet called Tacoma. Tolek, the Andromeda Council contactee Tolek was talking about this. George Cavazos said there is this brown dwarf, and Alex Collier also said that this brown dwarf does exist, and the Andromeda Council aliens put a cloaking device around it. And as the claim goes, when we ascend into 4D Earth, which Tolek said will be in a couple weeks, not that I want people to obsess about that, but when we ascend, this brown dwarf, the cloaking device will be removed, and you will noticeably be able to see it in the sky. It'll be obviously there because the size of it and its proximity. You said you wanted to look into this, as a matter of fact, because you thought maybe this could explain why the solar system is not the way we are told. Do you know anything about this brown dwarf, and if it exists, how would it factor into astrological readings?
Well, yeah, I've read about it, and I've tried to do some research, and I've read people that have talked about it, and I definitely think that anytime something new gets introduced, I think the first thing we need to do that planet's energy or do justice for the discovery is, all right, look around and say, what's happening with society now? So if we discover anything like that, and that is true, I think the key will be, all right, what's going on? And obviously there's a great awakening and the darkness is being revealed. So I think that, we have to give those kind of factors or those identities to that planet and then or star or whatever it is. And then we need to go from there. And then we need to, continue to do the study and follow that if we can as it goes through the zodiac. I think that's the only way to truly do it justice. But, Pluto was discovered when the nuclear bomb was being used and a lot of death and destruction. That's why Pluto got the definition or the energies that it got, because of what was happening when we discovered the planet.
Yes, and speaking of stars that we're not being told about in the solar system, both George Cavazos and Alex Collier said there is actually a second sun in our solar system, and it's on the opposite side of the sun of the Earth. So actually the sun is not at the top of the cone. If you go a little above the cone, there would be the second sun, and we can't see it because its orbit is exactly opposite of what the Earth's is. And I spoke to George Cavazos about this second sun, and he said it's designed to be a balance of male energies. I'm not an expert on the details of this, but he says there is a balance of male energy because there's so many like twins throughout history: Cain and Abel, Enlil and Enkiel, and likewise we have a second sun in the solar system that we can't see, but it's there. I mean, now that I've told you about this, can you say anything astrologically significant about the possible existence of this second sun?
I've talked about my feeling's always been that there's something, the possibility of something transiting on the same speed, the same rate, the same distance from the sun that maybe we never do see. And I think that's an extreme possibility. I think that's, I'm not going to discount that, but I have no way to prove that. So somebody talking about that and somebody addressing it in that manner, I'm not going to dismiss that at all. I think that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, and also Santos Bonacci has talked about how we orbit the Sirius star system, and as a matter of fact, the Pleiades star cluster also. It's a trifecta of star system orbits with our two star system. I said two star for a reason, as I just mentioned, and then you got the Pleiades and the Sirius star system. They're all orbiting around each other, and something tells me that gravity is not the only force that's causing them to orbit around each other.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so from an astrological point of view, what's your take on this? And you can find this whole thing about our star system and the Pleiades and Sirius all orbiting around each other.
I always try to simplify things, and I always go back to throwing a clay on a wheel and spinning it. If it was such that we're transiting the sun, so they say, and that's the only influence, we would have to eventually flatten out or spin or totally alter our I can't think of the word here, the way we're positioned against the sun. Otherwise, we just continually get flattened. So unless we had another force that helped pull us or keep us in line. So my thing's always been that we must have something that goes in a different pattern than all or the plane or the elliptic that we're on. And so this could be another star that helps keep us in line or helps keep us balanced. So yeah, I definitely think that the possibilities are there. So, and I do think we move throughout the system, and I think that there's another galaxy that maybe we're dealing with that keeps us, and to where we don't go way off course. I think we pull each other, and we manage or navigate through this together. So I do think there's a lot of merit to that. Absolutely.
Yes. By the way, I just want to get out another disclaimer of sorts to my audience. If I ever have an astrology expert on my show, we're not going to get into the subject of definitions of terms like conjunct and house and retrograde and all that. If you guys want to look that up yourself. It's just going to get kind of dull and boring if we spend time talking about astrological definitions. So if I ever have you on again, Jim, we're not going to get into that.
If I've said that, I'm sorry. Am I saying that? Or?
Well, I mean, these terms are coming up because you're talking about astrology, but I just want to point out people may not be aware of some of those terms mean, but I prefer not to get into make the show a dictionary by defining
Sure.
terms. It kind of gets out more important things need to be gotten out. But one other thing that's worth getting out is that the Milky Way galaxy and the Andromeda galaxy, they are now coming together, but they used to be one galaxy. This is according to, I don't know if I pronounced her name right here, Aishayana Dean. She has like 6 hours worth of material on Project Camelot, very informative and all that, in regards to a metaphysical perspective on reality. And she said that the Milky Way and the Andromeda galaxy, the former being a feminine energy dominant galaxy and the latter, Andromeda, being a male energy dominant galaxy, they used to be the one galaxy together, and they separated, and now they're coming back together. Is there anything astrologically significant that you see in that?
I just, I think that we're in a time right now. The last time Uranus was in Aries, the pioneering or the frontiering or a new understanding, so to speak, was 82, 83 years ago. So if you look at what happened back then, that we like catapulted ourselves in the understanding of more how the universe works. A lot of technology, a lot of anti-gravity things happen. So this would not surprise me at all if we now understand better with that, how we relate and how we deal and correlate to other galaxies. So no, that would not surprise me at all. I just think we got to learn what we can, and then we spend the rest of the 77 years dissecting or coming to conclusions and proving what we learn right now. Right now, we just need to learn because Uranus being in Aries. So that would not that's
yes.
right up this time.
Okay. And on regards to the solar system specifically, I mentioned earlier about how other star systems would have their own versions of a zodiac. Obviously, because their star system layout in the sky would obviously be different. But one thing in regards to our solar system that would seem astrologically significant is many people have talked about how there was a solar system cataclysm of sorts that happened like 6,000 to 9,000 years ago. I'd like to find out why there's a time frame debate there in regards to when it happened. But let's just assume for a moment David Icke, for example, is right. He said about 7,000 years ago there was a great solar system cataclysm. The planet Saturn was actually a lot more closer to the Earth, so much so that you would actually see it like what you would see Saturn look like if you were on a moon of Saturn, a big, huge body in the sky. It was that close to the Earth. And then this solar system cataclysm, which he claimed was engineered by malevolent entities, and this happened after the fall of Atlantis. This played a role in causing the fall of Atlantis, literally the fall and figuratively the fall of Atlantis, this solar system cataclysm. And this would change the layout of the planets. I mean, the stars, it may not change all that much because the distances are so vast, but the solar system layout would have changed tremendously if this was true. And, I mean, from an astrological point of view, you would think, oh, my God, this would mean we have to rewrite astrology because the solar system cataclysm happened. I mean, what's your take on this whole solar system cataclysm and how it would rewrite astrology if it did happen?
Yeah, I think we're in a time of resetting right now, like the event that they claim happened. Any type of history where they say that was 100 million years ago or 20 million, for some reason, that just doesn't make sense to me. I don't think it was that long of a time frame. We only have a short bit of history that we really keep track of, so maybe something like that did happen 7,000 years ago. And then what we had to do was now, all right, now that it's rearranged, now what do we know? What do we understand? Who are we? And I think all those questions get asked by every race. I think that's what you come here for, or every civilization. And so that very well could have happened, and I think that what they had to do is just reassess the planets and what happens when they're in a sign, and when they eclipse each other, and I just think it's a astrology is basically a big the human race has just got a big history book of events and timing when planets were in certain places, and they learn them, and I think we're doing that today. We're still doing that. We learn them a little more each time we experience them. Going through a sign, we're learning Pluto a lot more now through Capricorn. Last time we didn't know as much. This time we know more, so I think we need to come up with a better plan. So definitely something that could have happened.
Yes, Moving on to another subject entirely, time travel. Now, what does this have to do with astrology? Well, fact is, Andrew Bartzis has been talking about this to a great extent, about how time travel is used by the powers that be. Alfred Weber, who I'll have on my show on the January 8th, said time travel is the deepest, darkest state secret. And, the Illuminati are obsessed with astrology, and they also have time travel technology. They can see into the future, see what happens, and then they will, whatever they see in the future, they will do so they can suit to their agenda. And time travel into the past is a little more complicated, but just so you know, if you go back in time and kill your grandfather before your father was born, you won't vanish out of existence, because when you kill your grandfather, you create another timeline. Now, I want to know if there's any connections to time travel and astrology. Like, if they see, if the Illuminati were hypothetically to see an astrological reading that's something that they don't like will be happening in the future based on their readings of the stars. Let's say they try to use time travel technology to try to go forward in time or backward in time to rewrite history so it doesn't work out the way they see it astrologically. This probably wouldn't be your specialty, but what the heck. If they try to do that, will the astrological power of the stars and the planets overpower whatever they try to do in regards to time travel technology to change the outcome of history?
I've seen too much, and not only throughout history, but just through my lifetime. I'm in my late 40s now. Nature takes care of anything in 2 cycles. So if they did that, I think 2 cycles fixes what they've done. Now, they can continue to try to do that, but I think that eventually we have this innate sense about us that you pick up on that, and I think that then you make a difference, or you figure it out, and then you can start combating that. So absolutely, I think it's possible astrologically. The explanation, I always go with looking where planets are going to be, and so you know what the events are. I think that's a kind of time travel, so to speak. You may not physically be in that moment, but you know the energies that are coming, as well as you can take that backwards. So I definitely think they've taken it to another step, but I think they know not to mess with nature to that degree, and not think that they're going to have some consequences.
Okay. Also want to talk about how certain bodies in the galaxy, in the universe, have either malevolent or benevolent energy intentions. Like one such example, I talked about how the moon used to be under the control of good guys, now it's under the control of bad guys, and also the Sirius star system. They talk about the Sirius A star system. There's benevolent aliens there, but the Sirius B star system, there's a race of malevolent reptilian aliens there. And also George Cavazos, in my interview with him, we talked about how the Alpha Centauri star system and also the Zeta Reticuli star system, they are known for having malevolent races of aliens, not just that live there, but also use those star systems as outposts. Now, when it comes to the subject of malevolent and benevolent entities living on planets, how does that factor into astrological readings? Is that irrelevant, or can you make astrological determination based on what kind of good guys or bad guys are living on a specific body in outer space?
Yeah, I think the ancients did a pretty good job of going through the fixed stars and the different star systems, and what they did was when a planet came through or something happened, they would study that, or when the sun went through was their biggest point of reference. They would, again, record what was going on in history, and that's how we got, good stars, dark stars that were detrimental, good planets, planets that were detrimental, how they were detrimental. And so I think they all play into what was known by the ancients. And I keep going back to the civilization must have advanced to at least what we are today, but we have no reference to it because everything went through what we call the internet today. Who knows how they communicated back then? And so I think that keeps us then we almost have to reset each time. And I'm thinking this time, I'm hoping this time, I'm praying this time that we've all seen this and done this so we can get to that next level and really pass on what we know about the stars, pass on what we know about energies from other places that are not from Earth, and we can pass it on in a way that is remembered and can continually be passed on. I think that's what we're trying to do. So, again, I'm definitely interested in outer space. I'm interested in alien. I know there's another life force out there. I know there's another force out there. I can't speak I'm not versed about what you're talking about, but I do know that and believe that the ancients, as they described the planets or the stars, that there was detrimental energies that were dealt with, and there was a reason for that. So the events happen, things happen on Earth, and so maybe somebody did come from there. Maybe they told them. Maybe I don't dispute any of that. So I'm open to all that.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out in regards to Nibiru, Andrew Bartz has talked about how the appearance of Nibiru is directly correlated with the amount of fear that humans have on Earth. So, it was supposed to come in 2012, apparently, because it was a time of fear for some people, and there was the theory that Nibiru would come. Luckily, our Andromeda Council ETs took care of that and got Nibiru out of the way. But, if you believe Talik. But anyway, moving on to another subject, I want to get back to Sirius, because one of your astrology brethren, Kelly Rosano, I don't know if you know her personally, but she is an astrology expert like you, and she was talking about in her interview on with Greg Prescott on In5D Radio about how when the reptilians' time is up ruling the Earth, they will have to answer to Sirius. And I believe she also talked about how we all have to answer to the Sirius star system. Now, every planet, every star has its own consciousness, and we mentioned earlier that the Sirius star system, the Pleiades, and our solar system, they all orbit around each other. And Patricia Corey talked about how Nibiru used to be in the Sirius star system, but when it didn't ascend, when the Sirius star system ascended, it was flung here. So apparently there's a lot of correlations with the Sirius star system, but I'm interested in the part about the astrological correlation between how we answer to Sirius and how that ties in with astrology. Now, Kelly Rosano said when we die, our life will be judged, and we will have to answer to the Sirius star system. She said the reptilians will. Do you know what exactly she was talking about and what that means astrologically speaking?
She's studied it better than me, I'm guessing, as far as what's been written. The fixed stars I use as a backdrop, and it's obviously has more of an influence because it's the brightest star from our perspective. So as far as answering to that and having to, and she said, what was the civilization we have to answer to? Sirius? Well,
what she meant was she was talking about the reptilian aliens, the evil reptilian aliens that are controlling our system. Yeah. The ones David Icke has become famous for talking about. Yeah, she said that when their time is up ruling the Earth, when we will ascend, these reptilians, they will have to answer to the supreme being, if that makes sense, that's in the Sirius star system. Is like she's trying to say maybe that there's a hierarchy of power between our star system, the Pleiades, and Sirius would be at the top, and I'm guessing the Pleiades would be in the middle, and our star system would be near the bottom, assuming it's a 3-level system. So because of Sirius is at the top, we would have to answer to it, and our life will be judged by the Sirius star system's consciousness. So, astrologically speaking, does that make sense to you?
There's definitely a reason it's the brightest star in the sky, so I could see definitely where she could get that. Now, I have not studied that enough to really give you a good answer. You're tough tonight. You've really done your research here. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I'm not going to give an answer either way because I haven't studied it enough, if that makes sense.
That's all right. I'm glad I've been able to give you things that you might want to consider.
Absolutely. You give me. I wrote notes all through the show, so I appreciate that. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to write things down that I could potentially ask you about, and I'm running out of ideas here. Just so you know, we got about 10 minutes left. I'll probably have you on for maybe another 6 or so before I let you go, so I can talk about what's going to be coming up in the near future. So I guess one thing I could talk about, just for the heck of it, 2 more things. Let's try to make these brief. Comet Ison. Now, there was a debate here. Comet Ison ain't no stinking comet. It's an extraterrestrial spaceship. Talik of the Andromeda Council, the contactee, he says that it was benevolent aliens, but Silver Legion contactee Tanath and Galactic Federation of Planets contactee Sunfire say that it's actually reptilian alien spaceship, and they fear that Talik, he's not the same person he used to be. He may have been captured by malevolent entities, and they say, well, we've done scout ships, sent scout ships to check on Comet Ison. They said it's definitely reptilian. They don't know why Tulloch is saying that it's benevolent aliens, but regardless of who's right in this, what was the significance of Comet Ison?
I think there's awakening, and I think that we're in the galactic center. So, all matter is everything starts there and is created there. So, as I look at the Ison and Nibiru and all these other, it seems to be we're getting a lot more activity at night, and I think all that is because we're in the galactic center. We're where everything is. You can find all your answers, and I think that was a part of that. As far as the whether it was a spaceship or not, I don't know. It is weird for me to watch because there was a lot of YouTube and a lot of information you could find on the stuff I found. It did not seem to orbit like a comet. So I think it was something more. What, I don't know, but of course you can get every answer from A to Z with that. I just find it interesting. We're in the galactic center. We're seeing all this matter. I know there's life there, and I know there's answers and there's information, and we just got to tap into it. So I know that's not a good answer for you, but man, you're way beyond me in some of this stuff. I study the planets and the cycles but I don't get, I don't have time to go do that. So I apologize.
It's all right. It's all right. Well, we'll probably, if I have another astrology guy on the show, I'll specifically have the show about what planets mean, and instead of speculating on what other things might mean, like I've done with you for most of the night. But we got
well, I mean, it's your choice.
Left.
I just try to. Go ahead.
Okay. Supernovas. Astrologically speaking, and you got like 3 minutes to talk about this before I'm going to I'll give you 3.5 minutes. What is the significance of seeing a supernova in the sky, astrologically speaking?
I think it reminds us all that there's a beginning and there's an end, and then in that ending is a beginning. And so I always love the supernovas because I think that it's a system that maybe learned what it had to, and it's time to become and spread that which is known to other galaxies or other star systems, or whatever you believe is out there. So to me, it's a reminder of at first it's gone, but the very next step is, all right, what can we make of this? So I love to see that and watch that galaxy being formed and destroyed, because it's just a reminder of what we go through daily. And so for me, it's it's the universe in all its beauty, actually. So.
Okay. Actually, we do have a little bit more time. Sean Cohen asked me to ask you, what is happening for the next year, astrologically for all? You got 2.5 minutes to the best of your ability. Okay. What is happening next year, astrologically for all of us?
It's going to be definitely a big year for the revelations. The hidden is going to be revealed because the eclipses will move to Libra and Aries. They're going to square Pluto, and they're going to also conjunct Uranus. And so what I'm seeing here is a huge time of having to face the music, so to speak, for the human race. And there will be a lot of there's certain ways the universe works, certain ways nature works, and there's going to be a lot more of understanding that where we've gone as society over these last 25, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, we got off course. And so a lot of it's going to be pulled back in 2014 and realized, and people are going to get back to what really matters. And it doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to lose, or I think you're just going to find what's important. And I think really what's going to come of 2014 is that we're going to learn to love what we have, or love what the life force needs to sustain itself, versus all these other things that we've confused things with. And that's just a part of the human race growing and evolving. We'll still have those things, but I think that 2014 is going to be a year of reckoning, and us having to awaken to the fact that just because we got an education doesn't mean we're smart, so to speak. So I think that's going to be a lot of this year. And people got to get ready. They better really understand what life's about and find the meaning, because 2014 is going to be a year of that happening. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, you did say a lot of things are going to be revealed in your In 5D interviews. So, well, that was very informative. I obviously asked you a lot of questions involving astrological speculation instead of stuff that we can discuss for real about astrology. If I ever had another astrology guy on, it'll probably be more about things that are more sense, so like what planets and stars mean, instead of speculating at all. But With that being said, in regards to having you on again, the fact is, I tell this to all my guests, it's going to be a while before you hear from me because I'm on a mission to try to get as many different people as possible on this show before giving any one specific person double dips because there's so many fascinating individuals who deserve a chance to come on my show. So expect to hear from me, but don't expect it to be in the near future because there's a lot of other people who need a chance. But it was a pleasure to have you on. You're a great individual. I can learn a lot from you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to listening to future shows. So thank you again, Andrew, and good luck to you, because I think you're doing something good for the human race here.
Hopefully my show won't get sabotaged. Maybe they did try to sabotage it at the beginning. All right, but thanks for coming on. I will.
You're welcome.
I will see you in the later future. All right, talk to you later.
Great.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks.
Okay. Well, folks, I hope you found some valuable information there. I'm sure some people hung up from the start because of that little delay. What an unbelievable coincidence. Well, nothing in life is a coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. As to why it was exactly 1 minute when that power outage went out. It was only a microsecond power outage. It happened twice, as a matter of fact. I actually asked my guardian angels and spirit guides when that happened to try to keep power on for me. Usually don't ask my spirit guides and guardian angels to help me much because I like to do things on my own. But since this was out of my control, I figured, hey, this is an appropriate time to ask them. And I said, hey, the information in this show's got to get out, and this will be going on YouTube just like all the other videos. So people will see this, hear this if they missed it. But in regards to the future, I hope you guys all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It doesn't look like I'll have a show on Christmas. Not that anyone will want to come on anyway. I'm going to try to get a guest on the New Year's show. If no one can come on, I'll do 2 hours all by myself. I got some ideas about what you could hear me talk about in 2 hours. You'll be listening to me, unless, of course, I can get a guest, and I'll try. But January 8th, as I said, is when I'll have Alfred Weber. I don't know if his last name is pronounced Weber or Weber. W-E-B-R-E. For a lot of times where a W is pronounced like a V, and he's a fascinating individual. Saw him at the Free Your Mind conference in Philly. Like I saw Laura Eisenhower and Dr. Dream at that conference. They were there, and he's a colleague of Laura's. And we talk about all kinds of stuff. He's a polymath in regards to things. Does a lot of research involving chemtrails, time travel, ETs, conspiracy theories, and listening to all the guests on his show. His YouTube channel, recommend it to anybody, Alfred Levermont Weber. Well, first, you know how to spell Alfred, you know how to spell Weber. I'm not sure how to spell Lambermont, but should be able to find his YouTube channel. He does a whole slew of interviews with all kinds of people throughout the world who are experts in all kinds of fields. You can learn a lot from that channel. Watch every single interview, and you'll probably be an expert on everything. He calls it Exopolitics TV, but because it covers things outside of the politics that we're all led to believe is all that pretty much is on Earth, when in reality it goes so much farther down the rabbit hole into other dimensions and realms and everything. So he'll be on the 8th, and I'll try to get a guest on New Year's Day. If I can't, you'll listen to me. Get used to it. But hey, I can make a show interesting. I had to do the first show all by myself because my guest had a family emergency, and Sean Cohen told me she thought I did a great job. I'm sure I could do a great job by myself again. So namaste, everybody. Have a Merry Christmas. Religions may be Illuminati frauds in some way, but hey, there are some good things you can get out of them, as Jim said in this interview. So make the most of your Christmas, make the most of your New Year, and don't obsess about Tallis claims that will ascend into 40 Earth because you'll lose touch with reality if you do. Namaste, everybody.